I lose track of the Gregorian calendar date. It's pretty funny.
What's the Gregorian day? It's a day of Jupiter, sir. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Well, what day of Jupiter? A day of Jupiter.
A day of Jupiter.
Yes.
At some time.
Sir, I have an appointment on the 28th. That is a Jupiter day.
That is a Jupiter day.
Welcome to the Messengers, everybody. I guess maybe I'll start off this week. And thank you so much for joining us. Devon is going to read our devotion to the planet Mercury, and we will begin there.
Yeah, and it is July 28th, 2026.
Day of Jupiter.
Day of Jupiter.
Hour of
Mars.
So the 28th doesn't matter. It's actually just Jupiter.
Yeah, that's all that really matters. Joop, joop. Joop, joop.
Stop doing that. Don't do that.
It's actually a common thread among astrology fans.
Saying joop joop?
Yeah, joop, joop, yeah. It was kind of coined by my teacher's partner.
I think that was coined by the Insane Clown Posse.
No, that's
whoop,
whoop, whoop.
Yeah, that's the same thing, my friend.
No, that's a silent J.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, much different.
All jokes aside, all clown posses aside, peace be upon you, O Mercury, the swift messenger, the quick, the bright-minded, the eloquent, the key of tongues and the keeper of letters, the thought in motion, the clever, the gracious, the curious, full of wit, the teacher, the merchant of meaning, the patron of scribes, the friend of travelers, the carrier of the word between worlds, the agile, the dexterous, the speaker of many languages, the weaver of bridges, the great. You are the connection between mind and mind. You are the messenger of the heavens, the patron of those who seek understanding, the lamp of honest inquiry. I also ask you in the holy name of the Most High, I call you in your names in Arabic, Utherd, in Persian, Tyr, in Greek, Hermes, in Roman, Mercurius, and in India, Buddha. Let your clear light fall upon our minds and tongues. Reveal your sphere within and without, that our words may be true and kind, that our study may be fruitful, and that we might carry good tidings between every soul we meet.
Whoop, whoop.
And so it is.
I mean, joop, joop. Devon was referencing that a lot of astrologers say joop, joop, and I would like to give credit to the Insane Clown Posse. Have you ever listened to any of their music?
Yeah, I did listen to Insane Clown Posse when I was a disruptive, emotional teenager.
Did you ever go to one of the gatherings?
No, I never went to any of the gatherings, and I've never been to a live show. But I had a whole album memorized lyrically.
Wow. That I did not listen to Insane Clown Posse. I do know one set of lyrics. I think it was something like "fucking magic." How does that work? Or something like that.
Magnets.
Magnets. Yeah. Fucking magnets. How do those work?
I was like 6. I used to get dissed by the chicks, and everyone would chase me and hit me with bricks, rock sticks, call me names.
Oh, you know all the words.
I still have
it. That's
part
great.
of a song memorized.
So,
yeah.
real quick question, because Devon talked about last episode going to Burning Man. He's leaving soon for Burning Man. We talked about the fact that so many people don't like Burning Man. How do you feel about the gathering of the Juggalos?
I've come to really appreciate the people that I know and have met who have been invested into the Juggalo lifestyle. And a lot of them come away with kind of the same sort of like message that I bring out of Burning Man, in the sense that it's a fellowship of togetherness and a gathering where people who feel as like outsiders in the regular lived world have a sense of like community and belonging that they can't find anywhere else.
I think we should go.
Come
on.
I'm not.
Field trip.
I would have to first step into the realm of an arena and watch a show again. There's just like levels.
Oh no, bro, we're just gonna go in blind. We'll just hit it. We'll just go gathering of the Juggalo. I'll show up in my rainbow overalls, and we'll just rock it.
Sounds great.
Yeah, we'll look it up after the show. I'm excited about for the rest of it. I did ask a question though. So Mars, we talk about divine timing, and we talk about doing things at the best possible hour, not to be paranoid about it, not that you have to do it because life is occurring, right? You don't want to stop things that are already in motion. You're not going to put some important thing off just to make it be at the exact right time if it's not realistic. But talking about filming, typically, I would think we would probably want to be on maybe a Selene day, a Moon day, a Venus day, a Jupiter day. What would be the most prime divine timing for filming something?
Well,
I guess not something, filming something creative like this, because it does differ.
yeah, exactly. The project matters.
Yes.
Is it a work of fiction? And so this is would be considered like kind of like journalism,
Sure.
or like
Yes.
news, or like, you know,
100%.
that's what podcasting is. So this does fall into the realm of Mercury, which is
Okay.
one of the reasons why
Mercury.
we call in Mercury. And you know, you want to consider, so this is where like general timing versus like personal chart timing, but general timing, you want to look at a good condition of the moon, which is the moon is not in good condition right now.
Mm-hmm.
You want to look at,
Should I be using my block? Continue.
you know, there's a bunch of considerations you want to take into process. And, you know, some astrologers do put in a lot of effort into making sure that the timing is correct. One of my favorite podcasts that is in the astrology world, the Astrology Podcast, you know, Chris Brennan.
It's called the Astrology Podcast. They crushed it. They got it. They got there first, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've been around since like 2014.
It's like the guys who got books.com.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What about Penn Island? Did you ever go to Penn Island?
Mm-mm.
You've never been to Penn Island?
No.
Oh, you should really check it out when you get home.
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows what I'm in for now, or what you're in for? If you've never been to Penn Island.
It smells penis land.
Okay. Enjoy. But so yeah, Chris Brennan, you know, he does a really great job of he has a strict electional process. He's always making sure that his guests are like him and them are recording at proper times, and he's releasing them at specific times. Like he does a really thorough job of taking this all into consideration, and he's had a lot of success too. And I'm kind of a little bit more chaotic in some way. Like I do like using electional astrology, but like I've impressed on you that like astrologers can start getting really obsessed about it. And I think that
I would say actually it's worse for non-astrologers. I mean, maybe not, but at least the astrologers have the information. I feel like non-astrologers can get paranoid about those types of things, and then they get really hyper-focused on it without necessarily having even the background information.
Well, every astrologer was a non-astrologer before they became an astrologer.
Fair.
And then not every astrologer comes into astrology knowing or understanding astrological magic. It's not a thread that's practiced in every branch. How
many branches are there?
Lots. We're not going to name them all, but
Okay.
there's lots.
Oh, could you give me a rough number? It's a nutshell.
I mean, I think I could think of like 8 branches off the top of my head that are like main threads, but there's multiple like sub threads.
And we're going to get back. I haven't lost where we were at with our thread that we started on with Mars. But in those 8 branches, do they all use either the tropical or the Vedic system? Are those the two major?
Those are 2 of the fundamental pieces, I guess you could say.
Sure.
But like archetypal astrology doesn't use any or there are forms of astrology, I should say generally less specifically. There are forms of astrology that don't even use signs and houses, and they just use angles between the planets. There's also forms of astrology that have all mathematical positions, and they're looking at, I think it's what's called draconic astrology, and so there are all these like mathematical planets instead of the actual bodies themselves, and so there's a lot of different. It's kind of like the beauty of like math itself is its own form of divination.
Yes.
And so
we've talked about that. And I also, when you dive into the Platonic space, yes.
And so when you're using time and math together, you're going to pull meaning out of the universe, and it's pretty amazing. But yeah, so as far as like sidereal tropical goes, those are 2 of the main forms, and then there's like 8 different sidereal charts you can use because
which was what I
based
called
on different
Vedic
stars.
That's what I called Vedic.
Yeah.
The proper word sidereal.
Yeah, the proper word is sidereal because Vedic is wrapped up in cultural traditions, but sidereal astrologers can do that without being Vedic.
Yeah, it's just the lens that they're using.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you rectify that? Because I mean, I guess it's similar to to coming to terms with your own specific spirituality and your own specific spiritual path, right? There's just different lenses to look at it, whether you're a Buddhist or a Hindu or a Christian or Islamic. They are all wonderful traditions if they are followed, and they're all wonderful lenses to look at the world in a lot of ways. And I know Christianity is one that people have some issues with, but I still believe is a wonderful tradition and a really great way for people to find their own enlightenment and their own empowerment. So with the different branches of astrology, is it similar that you just kind of go where you feel called, or?
That's what I suggest.
Yeah.
My practice, and my practice utilizes a lot of different frames all at once.
So does mine. I mean, and so I definitely, I'm a panpsychist. We've talked about this. And so in a way, when you're a panpsychist, things begin melding with each other because you believe that we're all the same substance and the same source. But I drag from a lot of different spiritual traditions. You just have to be careful not to be stepping on toes and to not be, disrespecting the tradition in the process, because they are saying different things, even if they're pointing towards the same direction. We're back. Now, I just want to real quick before he keeps going, squatty potty. It makes you ergonomically correct when you're pooping. As a human being, we weren't really designed to be sitting on this certain level shelf. We're designed to be squatting.
Oh, interesting.
When we poop. And so by giving a squatty potty and bringing your feet up, you will find much more enjoyable bowel movements, and it's much healthier on your system. And it's a very simple investment. So if you haven't bought one, squatty potties make a big difference, and they're good for your system.
The Messengers, brought to you by
Squatty Potty. I got a bamboo one. So not stepping on lineages is what I was saying, and being careful about realizing that where people go wrong is that they think that everybody's saying the same thing. And they're not at all. They are pointing towards a similar goal. If not, you could even make the argument of pointing towards the same goal in many places. And I don't want to make that argument, but you could. It's an argument that could be made. And so it's kind of a gray area where you can take from multiple traditions and you can find what feels good for you. And that's where we're landing in a lot of ways inside of our global culture, because we now have exposure to a tremendous amount of different spiritual paths, different possibilities, different practices. And so you just have to be careful not to be, proselytizing like an idiot in certain ways.
Yeah, that's a way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, you very quickly can make yourself look like a fool if you're combining spiritual practices without saying from this lens, or kind of giving different caveats and really making sure that people understand that you're maybe using a certain framework for that conversation, or for that example or that thought experiment. And it's going to be interesting to see how we flush it out, because the globalization is not going anywhere. And so some people think that it's going to be a melding, and I rather think we're going to find respect for everybody's path in a way and see the similarities without trying to make them into the same thing. And right now there's a lot of people on the interwebs who are trying to make them into the same thing.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of people that, doing their best to make sure that doesn't happen too.
Yeah, tremendous amount. Yeah. And so I'm assuming similar is happening in astrology, but we were talking about feeling called to one path or another.
Yeah. And there's the one thing about astrology is, because it can't be really owned, there is always layers of experimentation that's going on. And, there's a deep space astrology where people are looking at the projected degrees of black holes and stuff like that is way out there, and figuring out through the process of observation, seeing how those points are affecting people.
Are they observing things that are worth looking at? Or are there good observations that they're making?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a friend or a mentor, whichever lens that they wish to see themselves as. Her name is Sasha Ravich, and her experimental lens is actually through stellar witchcraft, bridging the stellar sphere with witchcraft practice. And she has a whole group on her Discord that kind of converses through this lens.
Those are two words I just never thought would be combined with each other.
Yeah, and it's wonderful because it's it's using these embodied terrestrial experiences that we usually find in witchcraft, and then bringing in the stellar sphere into it. And yeah, it's really amazing.
So recently I got to see a guy use flaming nunchucks.
Flaming nunchucks, huh?
We are back. I got to watch a dude use flaming nunchucks, and he was amazing. It was incredible. It was at a fire dancing performance.
Mm-hmm.
They were using the staffs and all these different things, and then this guy broke out flaming nunchucks and just started ripping with them. And I couldn't stop laughing because I was like, I never thought in my life I would ever see a man with flaming nunchucks just ripping away. And then my first thought, I turned to my friends, is how quickly, like how many dates in do you tell a girl that you have flaming nunchucks?
Hopefully on the first date.
That's what I think. Like first, hey, I gotta show you my flaming nunchucks.
Hopefully they're the reason why you met the person. I mean, that's. I mean, if you're being your authentic self, hopefully that's what's attracting.
100%. And he's an amazing
other
fighter.
people.
He was performing at Oregon Country Fair as well. You know, he's an absolutely incredible performer. I couldn't get it out of my brain just being on a date and being like, so flaming nunchucks.
Tell me about your attachment to fire. Are you afraid of fire?
So 8 different paths that he can name off the top of his head. There's a lot of different astrology occurring. It's still experimental. It's all observation based. What I find interesting is because being a newcomer to astrology, the deep space astrology actually just kind of threw me for a loop, if I'm honest with you, because the way that I model right now in my head, you know, is that there's a barrier a little bit, right? Because if this is a system that has these overarching large planetary beings, really is what we're discussing, that are monitoring and affecting the system based on their movements. And the word monitoring might be a little strong for what's occurring, but it's a word. And that would imply to me that not everything is involved. Like there's a limit of the amount that is affecting our terrestrial experience, and it would become limited at the exterior of our solar system.
That's a possibility.
Yeah.
So my lens is that if we had the ability to give everything in existence in every single moment a stellar signature, we would have the complete map of time and space itself. And so take a breath. Let it go. Your relationship has adjusted to absolutely everything in the universe based on the Earth's rotation, and your signal, your singular specific place in time and space itself, absolutely everything in the universe has shifted its relationship to you in that single breath.
Yeah. I think about the same thing, but just from the Buddhist lens.
Yeah.
You are the flame on the candle.
Yeah.
Yeah. The flame is never consistent. It's constantly changing. It's burning through similar material, right? And so you can watch a candle burn from top to bottom, and you could say it's the same flame, but it's not the same flame.
No.
Every single second, there's a brand new you, a brand new experience, and a brand new representation of what is you here.
Yeah.
And
and so astrology is the measure of the relationships with you and everything else.
So we agree on that. We just see it from a different lens. We've learned it from different lenses.
Yeah.
But I will say that if you've never explored that concept, feel free to dig into some of the sutras from the Buddha. I will put a marker in here for some of them, and maybe Devon as a marker as well from the astrology. But finding a way to relate with what we just said, the fact that every moment is brand new, can gain you a tremendous amount of freedom and sovereignty from the stories that you tell yourself and the stories that hold you back from growing. Because if every moment is brand new, then every moment is an opportunity to make that change, to make that choice, to be the person or the representation that you want to be. And many moments when you don't have that viewpoint, you still are that person. And I think our society actually does this. And one of the weirdest things that our society does is photographs. So if I said a bunch of racist things on the internet when I was 18 years old, and then people were watching this podcast and they found a bunch of racist comments that I made when I was 18 years old, maybe I was drunk, who knows, whatever it was, I am that person to them.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not true. That's not me at all. I'm so far away from who that person is. Because of that, on a societal level, we hold our stories much longer than I feel we should. And it entraps us in many ways because people continually have this backlog of who and what they were for those periods. And then they create a story connected to them. And that's a thread. That's a continuity of that experience coming into the now.
Yeah.
right now. And so when you can begin to get away from that and realize that each individual moment is a new opportunity and you are a brand new person, you gain the freedom to adjust course and the freedom to let go of the shackles that have been holding you back. We make mistakes, things happen, and stuff comes up. As a society, we haven't really gotten there yet. We really hold people in place.
Well, yeah, and so it's interesting too, because you bringing that up is like, because in astrology, we're always tethered to the moment that we were born. And so we are always referencing back to that natal moment, but which does kind of lock us into a frame. However, the beauty of astrology also is that that it's alive and that you're alive and that it can tell more than one story. Mm-hmm. And so I was actually talking to a friend today about their chart and was, and kind of like explaining this, that it's that the chart actually is a Fibonacci sequence growing out of itself. Mm. And so it's moving in cycles and speaking back to its originating point, but it's always growing and no chart ever repeats itself.
I had a wonderful moment recently where I was with William, actually. We were down by Summer Lake Hot Springs, and we were laying on the side of a river, and William was floating like he does. If you know our friend William, he loves to have long floats. And I was just laying in the grass next to the river, and I was just looking up at the empty sky, which, by the way, is a wonderful meditation practice that's taught by many lineages called the open sky meditation. You can just stare into the open sky with your eyes open and allow your brain and your thought and your consciousness or mind to become empty and vast like the sky. And you can practice this. And so I was laying there, and all I could hear was the trickling of a river, the blowing of the grass, and two girls, my girls, it actually was Elle and Flo, playing in the river. It was just children playing in the river going by, the warm sun staring up into the sky. And what I realized is in that moment, I could be anyone, anytime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I could be in a different life completely. I could be in the 1300s laying next to this river, listening to my daughters play in the water. Like the concept of me fell away very strongly in the moment. And it really affirmed this insight that I've had before, which is all of life is a story. It's all just stories that we tell ourselves, and they become convoluted as time goes on, and we can release some and we can build some. One of the biggest turning points for my life was when I realized that I wasn't the main character. Like, in so much in the West, we like to believe that we are the main character. We have these main character moments. Rather, I rest in the fact that I'm not the main character, that I'm just a thread in a tapestry that is being weaved, and that without your story, my story doesn't really exist. We are all co-contributing to the story. It's just one massive story that's unfolding.
Yeah, and I do like that lens, but I also do like to say that we are the main character in our part of the thread, because we do weave the tapestry together. The way I weave my part of the tapestry changes the way the tapestry 100%. Looks.
Yes. Yeah. You do have responsibility, if that's kind of what you're getting at with that. I definitely take some level of responsibility for my thread in the story, but I refuse to believe I'm the main character. And that's just for me. I believe it's my own thing, and not that you can't think that way and you have different experiences or feel that way. For me, it's been an important insight, and that's just how I understand it, because I really am able to drop out of my ego and come into compassion and love and oneness, and realize that we are so not just co-creative with this terrestrial environment, with our life, but co-creative with everybody else. Like, we are all co-creative. And when I was able to drop out of that, what I call the main character role, I was able to relate with people on a such deeper level, because I understood that we are equal, that we're just playing out our parts here. We're all doing the best that we can. And it took the incessant drive to accomplish away, because if I'm the main character, then I have a lot of things I need to do. A lot of things are relying on me. I'm the one person, that's kind of the center point of this existence. That's what it felt like for me in a lot of ways, which was very egoic, very selfish, and it's natural. There's nothing wrong with it. And so by eliminating that for myself, I can really rest in, okay, I am a cog in a wheel that is unfolding, and in a weird way, I'm beautifully irrelevant. So I used to, I would say this often when I was able to sponsor men. It was a wonderful honor of my life. But I would always remind them that they weren't that important in like a very good way. You know, like we go around the world, or I would go around the world, and I would think I was so much more important than I was. You know, maybe this, or I said this and this made them upset. And I had the experience many times where you say something that you think made somebody upset, and then you apologize to them about it. And they're like, I don't even remember you saying that, like, at all. You know, or I'd have all these big moments in my life that felt very visceral. And then I realized that no one else had noticed them. And so by realizing that I really wasn't that important, like only I thought these things were that important, once again, it gained me a tremendous amount of freedom and sovereignty, that I can interact with the world a little bit freer, you know, realizing that it's not all about me, and that people aren't all paying attention to me, and that no one really cares, you know, in a very good way, not a bad way. They care about me compassionately, but they're not holding me under some microscope, right? Anyway,
Yeah, I feel that. I think that we're all here to learn different lessons, and I think that that's an important part of this, of the thread that you're a part of, and I think that other people need to maybe become more of the hero of their story. Maybe they're not taking enough agency in their life, and they're allowing themselves to be jerked around by other people. You know, I can't. One of the things I like to do, I mean, especially in my. One of the things that you learn in astrology while you're practicing is that because all of these charts, you know, they read so differently, and there's so many different ways that the layout can speak, that there are different threads that people are supposed to learn, and understandings that they need to come to in their own story, but it's never. And back to your comment about the sharing of spiritual concepts and the hope that they gain their own prevalence instead of a homogenization. Everybody here is learning their own lessons of how they should, how not should, but maybe a way that they could be interpreting their experience a little bit better for themselves.
And I actually, based on that, I do have to say and correct myself that what I was discussing in relation to the main character really does come down to my own experience. And many of that, that is primarily because I am absurdly confident. I've always been that way. So in my path, in my life, I have to dial that back, right? It's something I have to battle against, versus in that moment when I just said that, I wasn't taking into account that there's other people that need to dial it up, you know, and that you're right. They do need to look at more, maybe see themselves as the hero, and really take responsibility in that way. I have a tendency to go way too far the other way. And so I have to back it off in my experience and say, no, let's not let the ego get in charge again and start driving the train. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, what we've done here is really express the Jupiter day Mars hour really well, because what happens in the frame of astrological timing is that you have everything that's going on in space right now, and then through the model that I practice, all of the light gets filtered down through, and then eventually hits the moon, and then the moon projects the light onto the planet like a manifesting beam, if you will,
which I love.
And then, but that light's last couple of filters is the planetary day and the planetary hours, like the most acute. And then what the ascendant is doing is like the absolute most acute, because it's the one that changes the quickest. And so what we've done is we've been speaking the astrology through a philosophical frame, which is Jupiter. And then we've had some disruptions, and we've also gone back and forth in a Jupiterian holistic debate about
but debating is also
concepts.
more Mars, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But through the lens of Jupiter.
I get it. Yeah, like a kind debate.
Like, I'm not trying to kill you over this stuff. Like, that's like maybe a Mars on Mars action, you know? But then also, part of the astrology that we've been experiencing since we started this podcast is that Mars is actually in our house of publishing and broadcasting. So that's why, one of the reasons why I wasn't really that worried about And also just in general, I do not divinely time something unless I'm actually trying to bring something into reality that I want to like hold on to.
I did divine timing kind of recently with some letters that I wrote and sent out, and that was very beneficial. Just to give an example of how to use divine timing as a casual person, right? Because I'm definitely not an astrologer at this point, though I am practicing astrology, so I guess I would be an astrologer.
Yeah, I'd call you an astrologer.
Yeah. So I recently used divine timing because I had some letters that I needed to write that were very heavy, and I had some asks that I needed to make of some people. Kind asks, and they're good people in my life, but I made sure that I sent it and wrote it during good hours because I really needed a good benefit from that letter, right? I was looking for a certain thing.
It was an impactful moment in your lived experience.
Yes, 100%. And so to get back, obviously, the Astrologer podcast, what's the name of it?
The Astrology Podcast.
The Astrology Podcast. He's had good success with divine timing, and we were discussing that. The first question, though, was before we got off on the branches, what would technically be the best hour for filming a creative or a journaling podcast like ours?
I would say a Jupiter day Mercury hour or some combination of those
Jupiter
two.
and Mercury together.
Yeah, especially the type of thing that we're producing because the beauty of the Jupiter Mercury connection is like Jupiter is good at like broadcasting, like spreading, but also when you combine Mercury and Jupiter, Mercury is like the details and Jupiter is like the big picture.
Sure.
And so that help when they're in a positive aspect with each other, they actually make for really good, to take a step in a different direction, there's a system called Arabic lots, and when you have the lot that's created, which is basically the algebra of the planets, when you have the lot created from Mercury and Jupiter, and it's like really strong, it creates the type of people that like to record like history or wisdom or just giant records of like really important stuff. Like they're just super good at cataloging that stuff.
Okay, now relate that to our charts.
So in my chart, I have an angular situation between Jupiter and Mercury, and they're actually the only two planets that can see my ascendant. Whereas like everything else is in dark houses, and so for me that signature is like super important because it's everything in my chart actually inevitably gets transmitted through Jupiterian and Mercurial fashion out of my ascendant. Even though I'm ruled by Venus by being a Libra rising, everything in my chart is basically what we call inversion. So it doesn't make contact with my ascendant, but Jupiter and Mercury do.
Okay.
For you, you have a lot more action, like filtering in and out of your ascendant. You've had a lot more agency in your life towards different facets that you've applied yourself towards. But Mercury is very strong in your chart as well, and has a has what's called a Antisha relationship with your Jupiter, which is basically like the two planets trying to see each other through a mirror, instead of like a direct line of sight.
Sure.
So you've had to go about seeking Jupiterian wisdom through roundabout ways, like
Always.
your journeying and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's interesting, fascinating. I just wanted to loop that around. So today we actually do have a little bit of a topic, which is humility.
Yeah, and we danced around it and we played around it, and part of it is because one of the hot topics that's happening in astrology right now is, or was, it should still be because it is who it is, but is Saturn stationed retrograde on Sunday. And Saturn stationed retrograde in Aries, and it's going to be in Aries for a while.
I pulled a Saturn Aries related card on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
And, you know, one of the things that I noticed right away online and through different conversations and stuff like that is that Saturn kind of like, because we had such a pretty visceral Mercury retrograde cycle, a lot of people really felt this Mercury retrograde cycle. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of fear stoked about Saturn going retrograde, which is partially hilarious because Saturn rules fear, and anxiety and depression. And things of that nature, heavy topics like death and sternness and gravity, walls and barriers and constructs. But one of the things that really came through to me is because Saturn is in Aries, and Aries is a sign about individuation. Aries is a sign about going forth and like doing it on my own and trying to get it done. Saturn doesn't like being in Aries because Saturn's more of a collective planet, collective rules, collective understanding. You build a house together, not by yourself. Some people build houses by themselves, especially if they have Aries placements. But one of the things about Saturn in Aries is that it's moving too fast. And so Saturn going retrograde is actually beneficial for it because it
wants to slow down.
It wants to slow down.
Yeah.
It wants to go back and look over the things that have happened. And Saturn goes retrograde for a third of every year. And it's not like random moments of the year. It's like a chunk of time.
Yep.
And so it's going
to be... But it changes what house it's in.
It changes what sign it's in,
apologies.
Which can be a house as well. But more importantly, it's a sign. And it takes about 2.5 years for it to move through each sign.
So is this the first moment it came into Aries? So we're in Aries for 2.5 years?
No, it started... I don't know if this date will ring a bell for you at all, but basically last summer, starting on June 24th, is when Saturn first entered Aries. Mm-hmm. And then it stationed retrograde sometime in July and then left Aries on September 1st last year. And so that was our first brush with Saturn and Aries. And one of the things that I noticed, because I pay a lot of attention to politics and things of that nature, is that was when the current sitting administration like really pressed their ICE agenda, their immigration agenda.
Yep. Which is very Saturnian.
Yeah, which is very Saturnian. And also, as soon as it went retrograde, they backed off. And so...
Is that recent?
Well, that was describing last summer.
Oh, last summer. Okay.
And then when Saturn went direct again...
They backed
It was in Pisces, but it went direct again, and then we had the January things pop up where Renee Good and... There were some Minnesotans that were killed by ICE who were trying to stop the...
So you want to hear a crazy story about that?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I don't watch any news at all. I really don't. I don't listen. I don't watch. It's a few years now that I've been on this kick. But I do a lot of drumming and a lot of journeying and a lot of community, a lot of ceremony, a lot of things like that. I made a stance a few years ago that I can't really affect the global environment, but I can affect my environment. Mm-hmm. And if power is defined as the ability to affect change, I am way more powerful than Donald Trump or Elon Musk in my own environment, right? I can affect change on a positive level very quickly in my own environment. I'm extremely powerful in my own life. Mm-hmm. And so in January last year, I was sitting in a teepee and we were drumming. And if you're not familiar with classical shamanic drumming, we've talked about it on a past episode, but you can go and using the rhythmic patterns of drums, put your brain into a certain state, usually a theta state, which allows you to interact with the astral realm or whatever you would like to call it, the metaphysical realm. So having no idea what was going on in Minnesota at all, I'm drumming and out of nowhere, I'm in this drum journey and I just get shot like up into the air. And next thing I know, I am above a city, like floating, and I'm sitting in like a meditative posture. I like see this, it's just an internal experience.
Yeah.
And I see this, and I had no intention of going. I had no intention of anything. So I just got brought there inside of this journey, and I see the city below me, and in the city, there's just clouds and thunder, and like you can just tell it's a bad situation. Mm-hmm. And I knew that it was Minneapolis. I had not been watching the news. I had no idea what was going on at all. And I had the experience of being over that city and the drum is going and I began like weeping in the journey, knowing that I was beating a drum for peace. Mm-hmm. And I had the experience of just reverberating these rainbow waves out of me and like shooting a beam of like rainbow energy directly down into the city and had this very visceral emotional moment. And then I came out of it. And I was with my other compatriots who were drumming, and I said, I was just above Minneapolis. Like, why was I above Minneapolis? And they're like, you didn't see the news?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, I don't watch the news. And it was right after all of that had occurred in Minnesota, right? And so it's fascinating to me that even though we don't necessarily always tap into the social environment on the interwebs, that you can still be tapped into the global trauma that is occurring, right? You can still be tapped into the global consciousness. And in that moment, I had this affirmation of like, yeah, this is what's happening. We're suffering, right? That there's people suffering right now and they're in a lot of pain. And I was able to be with them in that moment and to tap into it without having to watch the news, without having to go. And it's not to say that supporting is much better if you're there, boots on the ground. You know, afterwards, I got inspired to help with some grief ceremonies in Minneapolis and different things like that. And I took some action, sending some messages to some church and to support them and different things like that. But it was crazy. I completely got brought there without having any information, basically at the exact time that it was occurring.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's a trip, man. This life is a complete and utter trip. So what were we talking about?
We're talking about Saturn retrograde.
Oh yeah, Saturn retrograde. So with Saturn retrograde, we have a lot of fear going on about it, but in general, you're saying it's a good thing. Speaking of Saturn, if the fear is there, you're saying to not be worried about it because Saturn wants to slow down. On a personal experience, I've noticed myself definitely being more grumpy about structure over the past little bit. I spend a lot of energy trying to make sure that I'm weirdly not telling my children what to do. Not that I just let them do whatever, but I find my parenting style does much better when I am suggesting things rather than directing them. And I found over the past couple of days, I just keep directing them. You know what I mean? It's just like, do this. And I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And you know, and that's really a great reflection of your chart too, because Saturn rules your house of home and your house of children. So, so it would be the same for me if I had children, but I don't have children because we're both Libra risings. So for me, it's been more about like slowing down my creative process, which is also the 5th house where children exist. But I have been paying attention to my structure at home, but also like the thing that I keep running into is the concept of humility. And I keep running into people talking about it. I keep running into, like passages and things like that, for me specifically, but I think that's one of the things that Saturn in retrograde in Aries is going to bring forward in people's awareness, because Aries is the sign of I. Aries is the sign of I am going to do this. I am going to go do this thing. And Saturn is more about a planet is more of a we planet, even though it does also rule like isolation. But it rules things that are like collective agreements, collective bargaining, collective bureaucracy. And one of the interesting historical concepts of Saturn in Aries is that's when the Bill of Rights was ratified. And the fun thing that my teacher Austin Kopic points out about the Bill of Rights is that it is a list of rules that negates what the government can do and protects the individual. Mm-hmm. It's a list of rules that protects individuals. Yeah.
Saturn and Aries.
Yeah, Saturn and Aries.
So can I define humility as I defined it for you the other day?
Sure.
I was told this by a friend many years ago, and I have a wonderful memory for random things. I have a good memory in general, but it's amazing to me how many random facts I remember versus having a continuity of maybe important or structured facts. I'm able to just kind of gather things. And I've gathered sayings a lot as I go along. If you say something to me and I like it, I'll just remember it forever. It just sticks in my head. And one friend, I was asking about the definition of humility because it's a very difficult topic. And as a younger man, I primarily was introduced with humility as being humbled. Mm-hmm. Right. And so my definition had a lot of shame around it. My definition of humility had a lot of humbling, right? A lot of lack of being seen, maybe embarrassment attached with it. And so the concept of humility was actually very difficult for me. And take that on top where I'm already a self-deprecating individual. If you're somebody who is very self-aware and looks at yourself a lot, it's very easy to become very self-deprecating, right? To be looking at yourself in a very negative lens. And I asked him about humility, and he said, do you know the definition of humility? And of course I replied no. And he said, it is the sincere desire to be that which we can be. No, it is the honest assessment of who we are with the sincere desire to be that which we can be. Honest assessment of who we are, sincere desire to be that which we could be. Wonderful quote. And I think it works perfectly because one of the concepts that I brought up with Devon the other day when he brought up humility to me is that very commonly, particularly in the West, but just in all work, it's very easy when you start looking at humility or trying to gain humility to be looking at your character defects rather than looking at your character assets. Mm-hmm. And one of the most fascinating things about humility to me is that true humility is knowing what you're good at. And true humility is standing in that and being okay with what you're good at. It's not all just deprecation. It's really having an honest assessment of who you are. I'm good at this, I'm bad at this, I'm weak here, I'm strong there, and then taking that information and growing with it. And understanding that you can change and you can bolster the areas that are weak, or you can tone down the areas that are too strong and things like that. And I just love that lens because any other time in my life, it was always a matter of trying to take things away. Like humility was always this asceticism, right? That taking away. And I finally realized that it was also being proud, healthily proud of what you're good at and being able to stand in that and represent it without the ego.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the ways that people get confused about Saturn too, because, when we think about humility in the West, we're often being given this lens of like meekness and subservientness, and these are concepts that like Saturn rules. But if you look at the people that get generated from having Saturn placements, if you look at Capricornian people or Aquarian people, like they are generally like strong individuals who some could be seen as subservient, but like often, especially my Capricornian friends, are very hard workers and they're very goal driven and they're very ambitious. And then my Aquarian friends are radical individuals. And so this subservient side of humility is really just like a projection down onto us of like trying to keep us in line as individuals under an authoritative power, which is actually kind of more of like a solar energy. But in total though, I agree that like, and kind of spinning back to the hero of your own story, like construct, like you were speaking earlier about how, you were too assertive of your will and needed to understand humility through a healthy lens to where you could manifest yourself through a more embodied experience instead of like going back and forth between two extremes.
And I actually have practices that I do. I have certain ways that I interact with the world in order to strengthen that. And we'll talk about it when you're done with your point.
Yeah. And then, whereas like something that I've had to learn how to do is to feel comfortable as myself in my skin stepping into a room. I've had to learn, and Ezekiel's being humbled by his microphone situation. But I've had the joy actually of finding, phrases, and similarly through poets and books of wisdom and stuff like that. And so one of the things that I say to myself, or that I wrote once, was, "You belong here with every step you take."
I like that.
And that's like a mantra I had to have when I was younger, because I really was like that, like meeked.
Yeah, Devon's talked about he had a rougher emotional beginning of his existence than I had, and rough is a different word, is a bad word for it, but we had different
experiences.
And mine was very governed by, like I said, being absurdly confident. It definitely wasn't I need to belong here. It was I don't belong because you're all off the path. If you just listen to what I was saying, like I'm the only one that does belong here. What are you guys all doing? That was literally the viewpoint that I had in like so many ways. And that's the experience of some people. It wasn't very commonly, if you show up into 12-step meetings, you'll hear a very common narrative, which is that growing up, I never felt like I had the rule book to life. You'll hear people say that, like they were growing up and it just felt like everybody else got a rule book for life and they just didn't, and they didn't know how to relate. I did not have that experience. I had the experience that I was the only one who knew the rules to life, and that if you would all just listen to me, then we're going to be just fine. And it was a very different experience, but it ended at the same place, which was being suicidal and being in a position in my life where I felt completely alone. And because I couldn't relate with other people, and it was a different lens to come at it from, but it was the same result, where I really struggled to relate with people, and I had to figure out how to bring myself into relation with my experience in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So to talk about, if you are a person out there who has a overabundance of confidence, or maybe struggles with being overconfident, or finds that they're a bull in a china shop in some days in their own life, what I found to be one of the best humility practices for me, like actual practices, is I do my best not to ask to do things. So it's very easy for me to come into an environment and say, I know how to do that. Get out of the way. Let me do that. I'm better at that than you are, or whatever it is. Right. And it's just a bunch of BS.
Here, let me do that. Let me take care of that for you.
Exactly. Yeah. It's constant, and it's a constant thing. And you see me dealing with it. It's a very big part of my life. And so what I've adapted a few years ago was I do my best to wait to be asked and to focus my life on service. So when I show up into an environment, rather than saying I can take care of that or I can do that, if there's an opportunity to be of service and to help, then I do it. If I get asked to do something, I will do it. But I actually do my best not to say, hey, I can do that, or let me step in. And it's interesting because people will track my life and they'll be like, oh, how'd you get this situation or this? How'd you up in this position or this position? Primarily from being asked to do it. And I find that in my lived experience, it allows me to live in much more humility, because I'm not coming in with a bunch of conceit and comparing myself to other people immediately and deciding what's right or wrong. Rather, I'm allowing for my own personal assets to shine through, right? And then just representing those well.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're on the other side of the coin of like you struggle with, being assertive, being confident, like having even the light shine on you, the practice that really helped for me was just to tell myself that I do belong, that I do belong, and that I do matter.
So I do a lot of English mantra. And we've talked about that. One of my favorite ones that I use on a very regular basis is I am worthy and I am ready. And so another thing, if you struggle, breaking out a mala and repeating to yourself every day with good intention, I'm worthy, can be a very powerful practice, to really settle into and realize that we are. I just had these experiences. So I was up at a singing retreat, and you want to talk about a wonderful place to heal from a lot of those types of items, singing. A lot of people think they have a bad voice, or were told that they have a bad voice and told not to sing, a lot.
Yeah, because we in the West, we have a culture where we've built that like art should only be viewed by those that have like mastered it, instead of like everybody should paint. Everybody should, like, not everything has to be driven by monetary success.
So I spent an entire weekend. I had my harmonium with me. I was at a song circle event. We were singing songs. I was one of the only male presenting people at that event. I have a very low register compared to most people who are at the event. And I was single-handedly carrying the bass lines, and doing it. And I'm not saying that from an ego place. It's just what it was. Like, if I disappear, no longer is there a bass line there.
Yeah.
And I was playing songs for people at mealtime just because it's fun. And I really enjoyed and doing my japa. And then I bring my hand pen with me, and I love sitting next to the river and just making an ambiance for people so they can have the experience of like laying next to a river while a man's playing handpan. It's wonderful. Playing so much music, so much music, like just all day I'm singing songs and doing stuff. I was asked if I was a musician 4 or 5 different times by people, and I said no.
Yeah.
every time, because I'm not getting paid to be a musician. So for me, no, I'm not a musician. And then finally, this wonderful woman, she was like, "Hey, you're doing so many different instruments. This is incredible. Like, I've watched you over the past 3 days. Like, you're multi-instrumental, and you're a great singing, this whole thing." It's like, "What are you doing? Are you a musician?" Mm-hmm. And I was going to say the word no, and I stopped, and I actually started crying a little bit. I was like, "Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Yes, I'm a musician in my core, and I'm a beginner. I feel like I'm a baby in a lot of ways, or whatever it was. But the creative expression is natural, and claiming your own creativity is good, and that is humility." Yeah. Me saying no to the musician part was a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's another way of like, talking about the humility factor too, is like, it is being the difference between being humble and being meek is, and one of the things that I pulled this from was also from the I Ching, the Book of Wisdom. The Chinese culture has a lot of appreciation for, or at least specifically when that book was written, has a lot of appreciation for humility, but humility isn't subservient, and being subservient is an act of lying. Like, lying is a version of being subservient, and being self-deprecating, hurting yourself is basically the same as not exactly, but basically the same as giving yourself lashings for sinning. It's a practice that is important to be aware of, and to slowly and gently love yourself out of.
So what I found, and I've talked about this ad nauseum with one of my friends, because he has a similar personality to me, which is one of hyper self-awareness, mm-hmm. right? Which, as I said earlier, can turn into hyper self-deprecation very, very quickly. What I found in my experience is that when I'm able to do what you just said, and I am able to curb that deprecation and rather make a loving relationship with myself, my internal voice isn't a jerk to me anymore. My internal voice says, "You're doing so good, brother. Mm-hmm. Keep going." It's this beautiful, beautiful voice. I found that my self-awareness was actually, I was waiting to see if I heard it. The self-awareness is actually a superpower, mm-hmm. because it allows me to have this lens where I don't settle into any calm spots, right? I'm practicing my scales, I'm playing my instruments, and rather than saying, "Oh, I'm here, I got it," and walking away, I kind of constantly have this, "Oh, it could be a little better." And that can be very negative or very positive. It's a fine line between the two. But I found that as I've increased and improved the relationship with my internal self, it's a really wonderful asset that I have, because I'm able to look and go, "Yes, that's good, and we're going to be better." Yes, that's good, and we're going to be better, and just continually driving for self-improvement. And that's a great skill set to have, where you can master some things and you can really kind of dig in there and get that depth of experience. But historically, before I had a loving experience with myself, it would just drive me to quit. Mm-hmm. I would just like the reference that Devon at the beginning of the episode said that Mars signified disruptions. And I think we're at our 6th or 7th disruption so far in this episode, which is triple what we've ever had on every other hour. So just want to note that.
Yeah, and some astrologers would say that it was foolish for us to not elect when to record the podcast, but then bringing it back to the concept of, I like to experience the astrology instead of trying to craft absolutely every moment mm-hmm. of the experience, so that we can have a discussion like this, talk about the things we're talking about, have the experience of being disrupted, even though this is going to increase the amount of time in editing that'll take place. But I think it's important to have the lived experience.
Yes. My lived experience right now is that Mars is disrupting me constantly. And Mars is in the form of a small child.
Yeah, and Saturn's in retrograde and in a sign that's ruled by Mars and Aries, and
lots and lots of disruption.
Yeah.
So,
but I wanted to. I was holding on to a thought, because this kind of takes us back to another place to do the whole retrograde thing. of where we kind of started in our conversation, and that's with our relationship to time and allowing things to happen in the moment and allowing it to let go and pass on. And also that we build things through repetitive action in time as well. Like, so with your music practice, you mentioned to me a lot about how you actually really enjoy the process of doing a little bit over and over again, and it builds on itself over time.
Time plus effort equals result is my equation for life.
Yeah. And so it's a really great frame for thinking about, because one of the things you talked about in that same moment a while ago was being held to a past idea. And then also like having this conversation and having it bloom into you letting go of the past idea that you're not a musician and allowing the beauty of becoming a musician fruiting within you, not just in your practice, but in your own understanding of who you are. And this reminds me of a line that has been like really resonating with me from a Buddy Wakefield poem, who's a contemporary spoken word poet. Fantastic. Look him up. And it is, release all hope for a better past.
I like that.
And then when you're in a position, when you're feeling at a loss, when you're on yourself too hard, whether it be Ezekiel's version of on himself too hard or my version of being on myself too hard, like take a breath, allow it to be a break in your time signature, in your moment, in your life, and allow it all to wash away in the river with children playing in the background and become something new.
Yeah, every moment. I heard years ago, and I believe it was Sadhguru, but it may have been somebody different, and I won't look it up. But he was explaining this really wonderful, simple lens, which is that as human beings, and this relates back to the singing, and I'll bring it back around. We like to frame things in a particular way, which is that we look at the past and we go, oh, if I'd just done that differently. You know, we like to give ourselves a lot of sovereignty in the past. And then we look at our future and we go, oh, it's meant to happen. If it's just meant to happen, right? It's just meant to happen. Flip them. Flip them. Look at your past and go, it was meant to happen. And look into your future and go, man, I'm going to make some great decisions. You know, and that little lens flip can really gain you a ton of momentum in your life. And it's common. It's very common that we look back on the past and we want to change it. And then trying to be optimistic, we look into the future and go, it's all going to unfold the way it's supposed to. I like the opposite. Like you said, I'm a co-creator. So the future is up to me. And the past was meant to happen because it landed me exactly where I was.
And you can heal the past by accepting it and loving it.
Yeah, what's the story? Once again, it's a story. I mean, we're seeing this in reparenting techniques. We're seeing this in so many things. EMDR was one of the first real branches of psychotherapy to explore this, which is we have the ability to go back and to adjust how we see, feel, and experience anything. Really, if we are willing to take the time to do it. And so EMDR therapy, they use rapid light, blinking lights in your different eyes. And depending on what's occurring with that, it allows for your brain to enter into a state which you can then go back and reparent yourself. And that was a very, very nutshell version. It's based on the same type of science that occurs when we're walking. So have you ever noticed that it's a lot easier to talk when you're walking? That's because your brain is busy. It's constantly scanning the ground. So like you cannot move through the environment without your entire system just taking in the environment. And because of that, it allows for your cognition to settle into a different state. Your eyes are constantly tracking back and forth. So they literally replicate that by putting a mask on you and shining lights back and forth to create a similar experience inside of your brain. Newer neuroscience is actually showing that we have sections of our brain that don't capture or experience time. And so what ends up happening is that when we have a traumatic event inside of our existence, it goes into, I believe it's our amygdala. It's your amygdala. It's a small section of your brain. And I'll look up if I was incorrect. I'll put it on screen what the actual term is. But your amygdala does not feel, conceive, or experience time. Your left and your right brain do. And with the neuroscience now, we understand that the left and the right brain take care of different actions inside of your life. One is relational, one's much more structured. And so in order to live a harmonious life, the best we can do is try to be in balance with the two, because we need the structure, but we also need the relation. The amygdala has a completely separate experience. So what they're finding, and they're tracking it with actual brain scans, is that your traumatic experiences live there, outside of the concept of time. Which, if you're a metaphysical nerd like I am, and you've done enough journeys, you love the concept that time isn't real, right? And all time is occurring simultaneously. This proves that, actually, which is pretty fascinating, right? Because that experience is outside of time for you. That experience is stamped inside of your experience, completely outside of the normal flow that we experience. So what they found is that they can, once again, track it when you go through these either reparenting techniques or EMDR therapy or these other different transcendental meditations, which can bring you back into that moment.
Or maybe some drumming.
Whatever it happens to be. You can go in and you can reparent in that moment. You can be with them. And so part of it is being able to go back to your childhood traumas and letting that little kid know it's going to be okay, or teaching them a lesson, or showing them why, or having conversations with yourself. And literally it moves from your amygdala into your relational brain and clears. It's trackable.
Which is great.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's really, really fascinating. So the stories are everything. I mean, I don't know about you. Have you ever experienced false memories?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I had a really bad habit of creating false narratives in my life. I was a liar. To say more straightly, so I would lie about who I was, lie about where I came from. Once again, back to this originating, not feeling worthy of who I am in the first place. And so creating narratives for people to believe about me that I could feel confident in. And then it was also a way for me to project myself into them so that I knew how they thought about me, because I told them how to think about me.
Yeah. It's just manipulation, but it's a protection.
Yeah.
It's you trying to protect yourself or to be okay. And
so there was I had to do a lot of work of unraveling my own false memories that I had created. 100%.
And any rational person going through that experience, it kind of switches your lens on the world in general, because those false memories are so real. They're so real. They change so much about what's going on in your experience, but they're not real. So in a weird way, all that really matters is what you believe.
Yeah.
Pause. We are back, and I was discussing false memories and saying that what you believe is really only what matters in a lot of ways.
You're not real, but your false memories are really real.
So there are people right now who view me completely differently. So I did a name change in my life. I was born with the name William, which is actually interesting. I talk about our friend William all the time, which is funny. But I was born with the name William. I went through periods of my life where I was a heroin addict. I went through periods of my life where I wasn't a great guy. Not that I was like some evil villain, but I definitely tended to be an asshole. If you're doing a lot of drugs and drinking, you tend to not be a super warm and fuzzy person.
Well, and also you're a little bit, and I say a little bit, but there's a subservience to the addictions.
Oh, 100%. Not a little bit, a lot of it. And so there are people right now who, if they bring up a memory of me, I am that person. They haven't seen me. They haven't talked with me. Maybe it's been 18 years since they've talked with me. I'm in my 30s now. To them, that person is real. Right? And so who's to say that it's not? Because they haven't had an experience to kind of clear it out. Yeah. In their lived experience, I am that person. I am this being. And so if we, in our own experience, create narratives about ourselves, which are extremely self-deprecating or lies or fabricated, it can become very difficult to get yourself out of it. And then as I've gone along and I've realized that I had some foundational memories, that very basic example. I'm the youngest of 8 children. We tell stories, especially as young children, about things that happen in the family. There was this one event where somebody wanted Hidden Valley Ranch, and they thought Hidden Valley was a place, and it was a funny story that they told about the children over and over again. I would tell the story as if I was there. And I would say, hey, do you remember when? Do you remember when? I wasn't born. But I remember it.
Yeah.
Because I'd been told the story so many times.
Yeah.
And so you begin looking at your life and going, I mean, you could have a mental breakdown and say, what is real? This is all fake or whatever. And that's kind of a far offshoot. When I began really analyzing that, I found my own freedom of sovereignty to adjust the story, to change the story, and to go back and to look at things and go, actually, what if that didn't happen exactly like I remembered? What if I'm only looking at it from a victim lens? What if I'm only looking at this from this one lens rather than really seeing the situation for what it was in my experience? And from that, have been able to heal tremendously. And it also makes it where I don't allow narratives to take off anymore. Very quickly, new narratives will pop up in my experience. You know, something will happen and I'll immediately think this happened or they're that way and this person is that way. Rather, I can look at it and go, I've been wrong so many times, you know, or I've made things up in my head so many times that I don't attach immediately to those experiences anymore. And it gives me a tremendous amount of ability to be compassionate and be open and be willing to see the story as it unfolds rather than attempting to direct it.
Yeah. And it's, you know, and obviously this gets complicated if it involves like traumatic experiences that are actually attached to actions that are repeated by people in your life, and like you actually haven't been able to create safe distance or space from people, or maybe you feel like you've given them enough time to become different people and then trust that hopefully they have, but then they haven't, and then they bring out these things. And that comes back to this lens of like, you know, we're only held responsible for the things that we can control. And so, you know, maintaining your safety, you know, for your own mental health, for your own emotional well-being, doing your best to heal your own part of those traumatic experiences while keeping the people that cause that repeat those actions towards you at as much distance as you possibly can. You know, this is the process of like the difference between having a narrative that you say about an experience and then having a reoccurring experience that continues to pop up in your life.
Yeah, in no way am I devaluing the actual lived experience of anybody. Rather, I'm saying that we have an ability to reframe the narrative.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'm just like,
yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm just reaffirming what you said. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just reaffirming. One of my favorite examples, and I've used this, is if you lose a leg.
Give up on the mic
I
cover.
know, dude.
Give
No,
up
I'm
on
not
it.
going to. I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna keep adjusting it. I don't care. I'm fucking doing it. One of my favorite examples that I give is if you lose a leg, you're not gonna regrow the leg. It's gone. We don't have the technology. We can change the narrative that you missing a leg means you're not whole.
Yeah.
That you missing a leg means that you are in some way less than, in some way not worthy. Because very quickly, when an event like that occurs, we're going to create a narrative around it. It's limiting, it's this, it's that, whatever. And those people that you see in the world who are just so inspirational, that are just going above and beyond, you're like, how? Like, how are you doing this with all the seeming limitations that you have inside of your life? Is because they don't have the narrative. They haven't allowed the narrative to limit them. So you're looking at them and going, I have a perfect example. I have a friend, Nancy, who's blind, 100% blind. She has a seeing eye dog who is so cute, and you're not allowed to touch her. Her name is Winnie, and she's like the most adorable little dog. She's fantastic. But Nancy is a rock climber. Nancy goes skiing constantly. Nancy does like all types of adventure sports, and she's in her 60s. This incredible, incredible woman. And you would look at her and go, how? Like, how are you doing all of this stuff with this seeming limitation? It's actually kind of crazy because to Nancy, she's not limited. There's not a single narrative in her mind where she is limited. You talk to that woman and she's just whole. You know, she's strong. She knows who she is and she's embodied. And she just deals with her terrestrial experience as it's presented.
Yeah. Yeah. As we all do.
Yeah.
As it's presented.
As it's presented.
Yeah.
And the really, really crucial part for me is the narrative, because the narrative is the barrier between the humility. If I'm carrying the narrative, then it's very hard for me to have an honest assessment of who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that, that's important to hold is like when you look at yourself in the mirror, when you wake up in the morning, like before you have any thoughts, like just know that you are whole. Mm-hmm. Like every day when you open your eyes, you are whole.
Thich Nhat Hanh tells you to put posters on your ceiling. So the first thing you see when you wake up is the word smile.
I don't lie on my back, so that.
But you know what I mean. Like that is a highly prized, amazing human being who has helped countless people through his writings, through his teachings. Just what a lovely, lovely person. And he tells you to write Post-it notes on your mirror, reminding yourself to smile because he does it himself. Because even him, without the reminders, will slip back into that narrative.
Yeah, I've actually had to very recently, I've had to adopt a practice of remembering to smile.
So this is a practice that I do very commonly. It's something that I remind people of when I facilitate meditation classes, but it's something you can do in your day-to-day life. Once again, this is from Thich Nhat Hanh. There's some wonderful books by him. Go check them out. He did amazing work in so many humanitarian ways. Such an incredible person. But he always says to force, in a way, to put a little half smile on. You know, they call it the little Buddha smile, you know, a little half smile. And what I found is it's contagious. If you can just put the smile on for a moment, you just start smiling. And where I found it to be extremely beneficial was in my meditation practices, in my things like that. I come to meditation, I'm all serious. Time to meditate. We got some stuff to do.
Got some meditating
to do. And I found that so it was a combination of I used Thich Nhat Hanh where I put the smile on, and then a wonderful person named Rob Burbia. He passed away in 2020. Incredible somatic Buddhist teacher, and he did a lot of jhana retreats. Really worth checking out. His YouTube videos are prolific and fascinating person. He talks about as soon as you enter into your meditative space, you allow for yourself to center your practice in self-love and self-kindness, right? And to really take a moment to set your intention in that way. And it makes a huge difference in your life. It makes a huge difference in your life. And I really believe it's because you're cutting off the narrative. You're taking it away. Instead of carrying into the meditation, instead of carrying into your moment, whatever happened beforehand, and all the stuff and all the places you have to be in the future and all the places you've been in the past, you can just settle into that feeling of kindness, that feeling of the smile. Because it's really a feeling. I feel it in my system. When I put the smile on, it's like a calm. My central nervous system just relaxes for a moment. And it allows us to be present. And what I have found is that in my own experience, when I am present, things are never that bad. Like there's not. It's usually when I'm projecting into the future, even in situations where I'm very uncomfortable, physically or mentally, if I'm actually present in the moment and can see the emotions and can see it rather than telling a story about it or thinking about it, it's not nearly as bad. You know, it's just not. So, the Buddha, I love the Buddha. He talks about this, and there's also some wonderful Zazen writings on this. But the real issue is the second thought, and the third thought, and the fourth thought. We don't have an ability to stop our thinking process. Cognition just happens. It's a phenomenon, right? So I burn myself on a stove. I don't have the ability to not go, ow, right? Like something pops up inside of my cognition. That's already painful. I'm feeling a physical response. I don't need the added pain of thinking about it. The added pain of saying, I hate that. I don't like that. It's literally like getting stabbed and then continually stabbing yourself over and over again.
Getting stabbed by somebody else and then
stabbing yourself over and over and over.
And that's reliving trauma.
That is the lived experience, right? And so the practice is to do your best to train the mind to not create those narratives, to not create the story. I'm already in physical pain. That's uncomfortable enough, right? But if I then focus on the physical pain, I'm then causing more and more hurt, more and more hurt, more and more hurt, and I'm living inside that experience rather than being with the pain and it's physical and then it will pass. things will pass. It all kind of goes away. Even if you die in the process, you're free of it. That's a little dark, but it's really a wonderful practice to have in your life, to when you see the train come into the station of your mind, when you see all these negative thoughts come in that are going to take you off on this narrative, about this story about, if they hadn't left the stove on, I wouldn't have burned myself, and screw them and this and that, or whatever it is. You can take a moment to breathe, to put the smile on your face, to come back into the moment and go, no, I'm just right here. I just burnt my hand. That's all that it is. That's really all that it is. With the Zazen, they actually talk about this with the practice, and there's a Opening the Hand of Thought. I've talked about that book before. He uses the description of ZZA, ZZB. I think we've talked about this before. And so you're sitting, nothing is happening in your brain. That is ZZ. Something happens. That is A, right? Something comes up in your brain, a mental formation, a thought, some sort of emotion, anything that comes up on the internal experience.
Definitely with the stove on.
Yeah. You can't stop the A. You can't stop A from occurring. It just happens. The issue starts for us in experience at A prime, a double prime, a triple prime, where you then take that thought and you run with it. And I found very successfully inside of my own existence that it is possible to train the mind to not run, to not go chasing these things, and to not build narratives. And if you can just stop thinking, right, then you get to experience miracles in your life constantly. You're just watching everything unfold in this beautiful menagerie that is really quite peaceful.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the one of the things that I like to point out is that, sometimes the training the mind thing is really difficult. And I think that some of the practices that people apply when they do have a really busy mind is tiring out the mind.
I can talk about that if you like.
Maybe we'll...
different episode.
Maybe we'll do it a different episode. But this is once again just like a... we all experience these different levels of being taken out of the moment in different facets of reality and in different constructs. Some people, it's more of like an emotional experience. It's more of like, they're not even trying. It's not that they're having thoughts arise in their mind. They're having trouble letting go of an emotion, and the emotion stays in the body, and and that can be any emotion. That can be sadness or anger or just holding on to that feeling. And but I do agree that I feel like a common practice that can be attributed to multiple different types of suffering of the experience can be at least creating like an editing barrier by just taking a breath.
Yeah. And first, because we're going to go into pulling our card here in a moment, because we're running long on time, even though we've had some interruptions. I do have to say that I just said one statement that is actually pretty transformational and revolutionary, and you agreed with it offhandedly, which is that you can train the mind. Many people, when I conversate with them, don't know you can train the mind. The mind and them, the experience of I, are completely interwoven, rather than beginning to see that the mind is a little separate from you, that the mind is kind of its own thing. Some of these thoughts that are coming up, these phenomenon, aren't really attached to you. You don't have to be attached to them. And because of that, you can train the mind. And when I discovered that I could train my mind, I began doing so. And then that comes back, looping all around, to time plus effort equals results. And the reality for me, in my experience, who deals with extremely rapid cognition, I mean, my mom even said it earlier when I was on the phone with her, your brain has never stopped since you were little. My brain just goes. And it created a very miserable experience for me in a lot of ways, is that you can go two ways. One is you realize you can train the mind. And then if you're like me, you're like, okay, I got to get it done in a week, and so... you're like on this hard
I'm gonna
path.
train the whole mind in a week.
You're on this like hard path for enlightenment, as if enlightenment is this like goal that's going to be achieved, and you check it off a list, and it's all done.
All done.
Yep, done. I've got my golden,
I'm enlightened.
I got my golden ticket.
Yep.
Or what I found because that's where I started, honestly. And what I found as I went along was it's the same as doing my scales on the piano, which is why I love the scales on the piano, which is why I love my practices, because they're really just a microcosm for the larger lesson. Mm-hmm. And the larger lesson is one of just incremental growth. Mm-hmm. This is what the yogas talk about ad nauseum. Just come and do the thing. Show up on the day, do your 10 minutes, do your 15 minutes, and continually compound that day after day, and you will have miraculous results inside of your own existence, whether that be through drawing, through singing, through music, through whatever. But I really feel that those physical expressions of that lesson, the lesson we learn through art, the lesson we learn through music, is the guiding light for us to solve our own internal suffering. It's like, hey, this is the lesson. The lesson is that if you can concentrate, if you can be embodied and you can be present, then you can begin affecting and changing your life for the better. And it's a really beautiful process. And so if you are out there and you are dealing with these things and you are like me, where you want to do it all in a week, what I can say to you is that it's been my experience and the experience of thousands of others, countless amounts of others, that through incremental daily practices, you can really empower yourself to heal in a miraculous way.
Yeah, and the message I want to kind of like attach to that is back to the concept of humility and meekness and things of that nature, is if you fall away from your daily practice, don't beat yourself up over it.
Yeah, you just got to get back on it.
Yeah,
I just went through that.
You just got to take a breath.
Yeah, and people who are watching who don't know me too well, I have some pretty intense daily practices. Devon has his own intense practices that he does in relation particularly to astrology. You have a lot of devotions that you do. Mm-hmm. I am a very devoted yogi. I'm a practicing Buddhist, and I'm very hard on myself. And so I get it. You can fall into traps, but being able to come back to that center point and really get a good lens for the growth that you've made can help you to have confidence in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I try to impress upon people in the astrological framework is you are who you are because of who you were and the choices that you've made in between. And you constantly have the opportunity in every moment to make a new choice.
So Devon says things that I hold on to as well, because he says some very beautiful comments. And one of them is that you are always the younger, dumber version of yourself. It's like one of my favorite comments, that, we have this ability to look back on our life and go, oh, I was just so young and stupid.
Yep.
I just really thought I understood the world, and I didn't. I really didn't. And I feel like my first one that happened was like 25 and 18. Like from 25, I look back, what was I doing? I really thought I knew everything.
Before we do the card, do you want to hear a simpler Mercury retrograde story?
Yes, but I'm going to finish my comment first, which is that right now you are the younger, dumber version of yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
You are the version in 10 years you're going to look back at yourself and go, gosh, I was such an idiot.
I was so smart.
Yeah.
What happened?
Be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself and realize that we're learning and we're growing, and that I constantly put this lens on myself in a positive way. This isn't the negative one, and we're related to the music, because I said this recently. Friends, because I said, yes, I claimed being a musician, right? I claimed it. Yes, I am a musician. It was beautiful. It was empowering. And then immediately, though, the feeling that came in was you were a baby. You're a baby musician. But it wasn't a negative feeling.
Yeah.
At all. It was more so, oh man, it's going to be so sweet when I'm 50. Like if I keep practicing like this for 15 years, I'm going to be ripping by the time I'm 50.
Yeah. And baby's great. I like to use the term seed.
Sure. Yeah. Similar thing. One's just a different, what's the lens? Anyway, continue.
Yeah. And also like the same concept about the musician thing, really quick. So earlier in the conversation, we kind of brushed through it pretty quickly, but I said yes when Ezekiel said, in your lens, I'm an astrologer. And I just want everybody out there to know that this is something that I find on social media a lot is like people are asking like, when do I get to call myself an astrologer? The answer is just like Ezekiel practicing music. If you are studying the stars, if you are practicing astrology, you're an astrologer.
Yeah. I hate when people say I'm trying. It's like, you're doing it.
You're doing it.
The word practice implies failure.
Yeah. The word practice implies failure.
100% it does.
And the best, or at least all my favorite teachers always refer to themselves as students.
Yeah.
So,
tell me your Mercury story.
So Mercury retrograde. I lost a coin. I lost something that was really important to me, and I thought it was gone forever. And so my friend Dave made me this coin, and he punched a hole through a place where it would have like a signature of like time on it or something like that.
Yeah, because we don't like time.
And so it can be seen in two different ways. It can be seen as an infinity coin, or it can be seen as a now as always what you have sort of a way. And I thought I lost it. And I lost it during Mercury retrograde. Mercury rules coins. And then I just found it after Mercury stationed direct.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So really
so
quick.
it's so also sentimental. It's Mercury retrograde in Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon. Cancer can be very sentimental and attached to things and attach memories to them and stuff. And so it's just a really good, like, simple Mercury retrograde story.
I just had an emotional response when you handed me this because I spent so many wonderful years inside of different fellowships.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made me really happy. And I got to tell you a little funny thing. So on the backside of this coin, it says a serenity prayer, which is God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Would you like to know the short form of the serenity prayer?
Sure.
Fuck it.
Yeah. Would you like to hear the astrologer's version of the serenity prayer? It's Saturn. Give me the serenity to accept the things I can't change. Mars, give me the courage to change the things that I can. And Jupiter, give me the wisdom to know the difference.
Screw it. So I chose the card for the day. I've been choosing. Neither of us have seen the card for the day. Neither of us have seen the card for the day. Man, the disruptions are so great. You're so on point. It is bonkers the amount of disruptions that we have had in this one episode. Oh, nice. We got the 10 of Wands.
The 10 of Wands.
Okay.
So the 10 of Wands symbolizes, well, first of all, we have wands. Wands are fire. Fire represents an act of will and the process of enacting our will into the world. Tens symbolize the end of a process, the end of a storyline, the end of something happening. The 10 of Wands specifically is a reference to trying to do too much by yourself. And what's interesting too about the 10 of Wands is it is the winter solstice point. It's between the 10 of Wands and the Two of Pentacles.
Decan.
Yeah.
That's that. So if you're not familiar with astrology, tarot is related directly over to astrology, meaning that there's certain degree points on the charts, right, that would signify a relation to the tarot card.
Yes.
And the term for that is Decan.
For the minor arcana, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's through the Golden Dawn system. Not everybody uses that system specifically through the tarot lens, but yes. Through the Rider-Waite Golden Dawn system, this card specifically is related to the last 10 degrees of Sagittarius. And what's interesting is well, first of all, our experience of recording this podcast has been through continuing forward through difficulties, through disruptions.
We've had constant stuff from this podcast. Me and Devon both decided, we're creatives. We want to be creating, so we are creating. And that's something that I just want to say to people out there, if you are listening, like, go do it. I use
whatever the idea is.
I use this example constantly, but if I sat around all day, like thinking about kayaking and watching kayaking videos and telling people about kayaking, but I never entered a kayak, and I was never on a river, it would be a little weird if I told people I was a kayaker. But that's very common inside of our experience where we go,
which is different than practicing music and then performing music in front of people
and then doing it,
and
right?
calling yourself a musician.
Exactly. It's a different process. And so if I could say anything to anybody, it's just go and do it. We've had audio that wasn't great. Perfect. Put it up. We've had video that wasn't great. Perfect. Put it up and just allow it to be and sit in that humility and realize that it's okay to be where you are. Mm-hmm. It's okay.
Yep.
You're right where you're supposed to be. The wizard is never late.
The wizard is never late.
So you're right where you're supposed to be.
And the Ten of Wands also tells us that it's important to seek help. Mm-hmm. And so we've done a lot of talking in this episode specifically about mental health issues, the different kinds of suffering that we have both been through and that other people experience that create issues around, how we view the world and ourselves. And I think the Ten of Wands is also here to remind us, because this is a card that's talking about temporally in the deck, and it's a card that's talking about the darkest part of the night, the heart of winter, and so it's always important that you don't always have to try to figure out how to do all this stuff on your own, that it's important to seek out friendship and to create community. And the one of the beautiful parts of this portion of time in winter is the harmonious gatherings that can occur to help hold us together through the darkest parts of the winter. You see cross-culturally through both sides of the equator, that it's through the hardest portions of life, it's through the hardest parts of night that really we congregate together in order to survive. And I think that's something that we do a disservice to ourselves, is not seeking community in everyday life. Seek community, seek friendship. Pick up the phone and call people. This is something I need to say to myself, is reach out to friends.
One of my favorite things about Devon is, this was kind of recently, but I called him just to say hi. And he was really surprised. I could tell. Yes. I called him. I was like, hey, how are you? And then, we talked for a moment, and then he was like, so what's up? Nothing.
I'm
just calling to say hi, and I hope you have a good day, and all these different things. And that's a practice that I learned from the fellowship programs. If you want to build a relationship, you call people, you say hello, you check in on them. And inside of our current age of globalization, we have this false sense of community that gets created through social media.
Yeah.
And it's not real.
No.
It's not at all. And so you can put yourself in this silo where you feel like you're relating with people because you're watching what they're doing on social media, but you're missing the actual action.
The back and forth
of being with people.
I actually, to say on the same thing, I actually was listening to NPR.
NPR, public radio.
And there was a person on there speaking, and they started off by talking about I sit down with CEOs and, all these important people and blah, blah, blah. But the most important conversation I had was with an 11-year-old this year. And what this person related was they asked the kids, the 11-year-olds, which type of place do you like to be the most, online or in person? And they're like, online. And she's like, why? And they're like, because no one's talking to each other in person. When I'm online, I'm having experiences with people.
Whoa.
Yeah, because everybody's spending so much time
on their phones,
isolated on their phones, that these kids are growing up with adults that are spending all their time on their phones. And so they're drawn to these friendships that
are digital.
Yeah. They're we're doing stuff together. They're we're playing games together. We're, building
in a way
stuff
you
together.
are. I've seen a resurgence. It's interesting. So my generation, you're older than I am. Though I think we're both millennials. Are you a millennial?
I guess.
You're kind of on the cusp, but
Yeah, 84. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're the beginning of the millennial, and I'm towards the end of the millennial. We're kind of right there. Regardless, my generation, we were the first big generation of online gaming. MMORPGs came out while I was in high school. Right before that. Vanilla WoW was when I was in middle school.
Yeah, when I was in when I was in high school, it hadn't yet reached the level of like online, but we were doing it in the computer lab.
Sure, that's fine, but you're still connected. I've seen a huge resurgence of people going away from digital role playing into in-person role playing. Mm-hmm. So I'm going up to a camp with the kids next week. We've got a whole tent that's just for Dungeons and Dragons and just for role-playing games, so kids can kind of do that and express that. And I have so many friends in their 30s and 40s who are going back to playing Dungeons and Dragons because they want to be in a room with somebody. They want to be sitting and having a beer and like hanging out with friends and not just online, because when you've been sitting in front of a computer all day, farting into a leather chair and just like cracking away on the keyboard, yes, you are getting these dopamine hits. Like, yes, you are getting this internal experience of achievement, this internal experience of relation with other people, but it's so ethereal. It disappears so quickly. Rather, when you have a real relation with people, it holds weight. Right? It settles in, and there's something about it which we can't replicate. And, you know, whether you want to get woo-woo and go into the fact that we have these amazing electromagnetic fields which are around us and our central nervous system is connected to it and everything else, but you're seeing people coming back to the community while still maintaining the fantasy. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's going to be really interesting. I have 2 young children to see where it all plays out. Yeah. Because it's not going anywhere. You know, unless we have some global cataclysm, like the technology is not going anywhere. We are just adapting of how to deal with it. And we've never evolutionarily dealt with things like this on scale.
Yeah, this is such a rapid amount of exterior change for the human body and mind to adjust to.
If you give us enough time, we will probably be able to smell gas. Like propane and those things. You know, they add scent to it. Yeah. They add it because we evolutionarily, we never dealt with that. Yeah. We never dealt with massive gas leaks that could blow up our environment or could kill us or something. It just wasn't being produced on scale in the natural terrestrial environment. Yeah. So we never adapted an ability to detect those things. We've adapted an ability to detect and deal with everything that we relate with on a regular basis. Within 1900 and 2026, so many new things have been introduced to our environment that our evolution, our systems have not caught up. Oh, yeah. They're not even freaking close to catching up. And with the technology,
the kids are the closest, but even the technology is so moving quicker than the children.
The children can grow up. Yeah. And so it's going to be really fascinating to see how we deal with this as we go on. But what I know for certain right now in this moment is it's always a good idea to reach out for help. Yeah. It's always a good idea to call friends. Yeah. It's always a good idea to build community. And I can tell you, I lived in a successful but isolated lifestyle for many years, and I would much rather be poor with friends.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, to kind of end on the card, the other thing that takes place during this period of time, historically, you know, the middle of winter, this is when stories get written. This is when collective narratives get built. This is also when innovations get dreamed up, you know, like we do a lot of problem solving in the moment when we're dealing with a now problem, but like agricultural development and just any sort of like cultural experience, it's in these moments of community where we can build together and then implement it when the proverbial spring takes place.
And I will also say on a last note, never underestimate mind-to-mind transmission. It's something that's documented on scale. Feel free to look into it. The Zen tradition is one that talks about this pretty ad nauseum, but there is an ability to be in resonance with other people when you're around them. We gain a lot even just sitting silently with somebody else inside of a room. Yeah. And so thank you very much for listening along. Yeah. I don't know if we got anything else for the day.
No, I think that pretty much ends it. As far as like astrological weather to kind of look forward to, we've got the full moon tomorrow night.
What? So I have to ask before we go on, because I actually have a friend coming over for dinner tomorrow night. This full moon, is there anything to be looking out for or to be taking note of?
Well, yeah. What we like to say in the astrological community when we're entering eclipse season is that it generally takes place. Coming up? Yeah.
When?
August 12th.
Oh, is that the day?
Yeah.
That was the day I said the 13th intuitively, and then this is 12th. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So people know me and eclipses have a lot that go on with each other. Yeah, they're like very big portions of my life.
And so the full moon, basically one of the ways that eclipses are looked at, there's multiple different time frames to look at eclipses, but as far as the immediate environmental social shifts that can take place is it starts at the last lunation before an eclipse and then lasts until the next lunation after the second eclipse, because they always come in pairs.
Is lunation the dark moon or the full moon?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. So this full moon, after this full moon tomorrow, we'll start eclipse season. So you'll get that 2-week window leading up to the solar eclipse on August 12th. And then 2 weeks after that will be the lunar eclipse. And then 2 weeks after that will be a new moon. And that'll be the end of the eclipse cycle.
I was convinced the world was going to end one eclipse. I think I told you that.
Yeah, you did tell me that. Yeah.
They can be really intense. So with this, the moon is really signifying us coming into eclipse season.
Yeah, it's coming into eclipse season, especially because the nodes just switched from the Pisces Virgo axis into the Aquarius Leo axis, and will be there for roughly a year and a half. And this is an Aquarius full moon, so it's we would say that it's putting a spotlight into the sign that we're going to be experiencing these eclipses for the next year and a half or so.
Okay, so things to look out for.
Things to look out for. What I've been thinking about with this eclipse is that it's this lunation, not eclipse. This full moon is that it's happening in the heart of the Sea Goat constellation. It's being
Sea Goat?
Yeah, the Sea Goat.
Okay.
And it's being transmitted through the gates of Aquarius. And so what I'm going to be meditating on is the amount of effort it takes to develop and transition from one frame of thinking into a new state of thinking.
That's what my cards have been pointing me towards constantly. Is like just be creative, open up, stop being so narrow in your view.
Yeah, invite conversation of outside of the box thinking. Invite conversation with people that you may have never conversed before. Invite yourself to feel empowered to say things that you wouldn't necessarily normally say.
Nice things.
Yeah. I mean, you do you. I don't know. Sometimes people, they hold back the things that they say because they don't want to hurt people's feelings, but sometimes the truth needs to be spoken.
Not on this episode, but we got to talk about the Big 5 personality test at some point, and I got to show you my score on it because they use disagreeable as one of the markers for like the personality traits. What do you think my rating of disagreeable is?
80%?
97% disagreeable. Which is fine. Disagreeable people change the world.
I don't believe you.
You don't believe me?
I'm just kidding. I'm just being disagreeable.
But so for the people out there who aren't disagreeable, it might be a time to stand up and to say, hey, like, I don't like this or whatever it may be in your own existence.
Yeah, exactly. The only way change happens is by a group of people standing up and saying, I don't agree with the way we're doing this anymore.
Goodness knows we need some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. May the fire inside guide you.
May the fire inside guide us.
Joop, joop.
Joop, joop.
Okay, so title of the episode is either Joop, joop or Hey, Dad.
Hey, Dad. Mars said...